How's it going, guys? Cody guys, back again, dropping yet another video. I was in the bath, as you can probably hear. Right guys, what it was, I've had a Sunday dinner, I was chilling out and I just thought, you know what, I've got these vlogs to do, so rather than waiting, having a long bath, getting out, getting dry, chilling out on the bed, listening to some music and then doing the vlogs late, I just thought, no, you know what, I'm going to do the vlogs in the bath. I've done them in the shower, I've done them in the bath before. Right, so this is a story in the Daily Mirror. Let me just dry my hands. It's a record number of prison officers quit over attacks linked to zombie drug spice. It says here, at least 72 trainee warders left the service each month within weeks of completing their training, the Sunday People can reveal. A record number of prison officers are quitting as the zombie drug spice and violent attacks sweep through jails. At least 72 trainee warders left the service each month within weeks of completing their training, the Sunday People can today reveal. One lasted just until his first lunch break, according to a whistleblower. Neil Harrison, who has just left the job as a prison officer after 24 years, said, "It's worse than ever, it's like a war zone." More than 650 new prison staff on a starting salary of $22,000 quit before completing a year's service just last year. Our most dangerous jails are increasingly left in the hands of officers with less than 3 years' experience. Neil, 55, who quit after rising violence at HMP Risley near Warrington, Cheshire, claimed one young recruit left within hours of beginning his first shift because he could not handle intimidation from the prisoners. And Neil told how convicts had targeted a female officer by throwing excrement in her face within 2 weeks of her joining the service. Neil said these are young kids coming in with no life experience and they've been told it's a good opportunity having a decent job and a career. But they've been hoodwinked, they don't realise the dangers they're facing and they're just leaving. One lad started on a Sunday morning and he had left by lunchtime, he never came back. Neil from Wigan in Lancashire said drugs debts behind bars were soaring, with inmates handing out violent beatings on those who owe up to £5,000 for the so-called zombie drug spice. They're now forcing inmates' parents out on the outside to set up bank accounts so they can transfer cash between criminals. Neil struggled to cope with the scenes of horrific violence as well as the suicides and hangings. He said, "I used to go to work excited. I was looking forward to what the day held. But then they started making cuts and we lost control. If it got to the point where I was in my car driving in and I was getting anxious and it's like a war zone rather than a prison. There's a spice epidemic which is fueling debts between prisoners and violence. The debts can be massive, up to £5,000, and if you inherit someone's cell after they leave, you inherit their debt. There are people in prison who have mental health problems and just shouldn't simply be there." Last night, MPs called for action over the rising tide of drug and alcohol abuse behind bars across the UK. And Glenn Travis of the Prison Officers Association said, "New staff need mentoring until they find their feet. All too often they are thrown into the job without the adequate backup. The reality is all staff, especially new officers, face an unprecedented level of violence. For some who are not prepared, it is just too much. You're expecting too much of young people and without enough life experience. We've been warning the government to heed our concerns around recruitment and retention, but they failed to listen. Figures obtained by the Sunday People show that during the first 9 months of last year, 651 staff resigned before completing a year in the job. In the same period as Tory MPs vowed to boost frontline staff with 4,300 new recruits, prison chiefs recruited 4,539 new officers. Nearly 15% of them had left within the first 12 months. In 5 years, more than 1,700 have resigned from the prison service within 12 months of starting. The cost of training has totaled £19.7 million. It comes as the government reports record attacks and assaults on prison staff. Justice Secretary David Gauke claims to have strengthened the front line with more than 4,000 new staff to tackle drugs, violence in our jails. And he says the government is investing £6 million in 10 of the most challenging prisons to tackle drug supply and reduce demand. Meanwhile, Prisons Minister Rory Stewart claimed he would resign in a year if he failed to reduce drugs and violence levels in the 10 target jails in England. Last year, there were more than 3,500 assaults in the 10 prisons that the Ministry of Justice are targeting. That was an increase of 15% on the previous year and more than double the number of assaults that took place in 2014. In Parliament this week, MPs were told how one prison officer was badly injured by a drug-addled con. Gordon Henderson, MP, said, "This was not an isolated incident, it happens every day of the week in one prison or another." Much of the violent behaviour, as we have heard, is caused by drugs. And Chris Evans, Labour MP for Islwyn, Gwen, told of the chaos after speaking to a guard in his constituency who quit after just 6 months. He said, "This is a widespread problem. Prisons are at capacity and are locking people up with drug addictions, but it's the prison service which is taking a hit. Suicide is common in prison and people have to pick up the pieces at the prison officers." No, it's not. It's the families, guys, that are left behind. There is evidence that the people are leaving because they're not equipped to deal with the violence and the self-harm, the suicides, serious issues on mental health problems. Our statistics disclosed under the Freedom of Information Act reveal that in 2015, just 296 warders with less than 12 months on the job quit. The latest figures represent a 120% surge in resignations. The figures also show soaring numbers of staff quitting after completing a year's service. Last night, a prison officer spokesman said, "The huge number of officers we've recently recruited inevitably means there are more staff and more leavers with under 1 year's experience. But we are working hard to retain staff, including by giving them the biggest pay award in a decade last year." And responding to Neil Harrison's claims, the service said, "The well-being and safety of our officers is a priority. All newly recruited staff receive thorough training and support." Now, that's rubbish. Now, the support they receive, guys, again, sweating like a pig on a spit. Right, so the thing is, yeah, what you've got to look at, right? The training that they receive isn't adequate enough, guys, right? I've been a prisoner, so I've got, we're informed, anyone that's been in jail or being a prison officer knows. Now, they get 9 weeks training, right? 1 week solidly of control and restraint training, right? No amount of training puts you in a position for the reality of being dropped on a wing with hardened cons that are masters of manipulation, the violence, the self-harm, the deaths, the suicides, the despair, the anger, the frustration, and everything else, right? Now, I used to have sympathy with prison officers, and I do to an extent. I don't condone attacks, but I completely understand why they happen. Some prison officers have got it coming, some prison officers are just on the receiving end. But like I say, guys, right, what you've got to look at, the prison officers, what they fail to mention, and Glyn Travis from the Prison Officers Association, what they fail to recognise and what they fail to mention is that prison officers themselves and the Prison Officers Association, right, have actually contributed to record levels of violence. How? Because they lobbied for the smoking ban within prisons, right? Now, by lobbying for the smoking ban, you're antagonising prisoners. Imagine a sleeping dog, it's there, you're poking it with a stick, you poke it with a stick, you're taking its tobacco, right? Tobacco has been used as a stress relief and currency in prison forever and a day. Really, really has. It's big business, right? Well, it still is big business, but it's been pushed underground. They went as far as threatening to pull a judicial review to get it fast-tracked, right? By taking smoking away from prisoners, you've antagonised them, you're winding them up. So that sees an increase in violence and people lashing out. Right? The flip side of that, by banning something and by making it contraband, you think it disappears? No, no, no. All it does, guys, it gets pushed underground, becomes contraband. By becoming contraband, the price goes up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times what it is on the street or what it was previously on the canteen. That incurs debt. Where you've got debt, you've got fear, intimidation, bullying and violence. And the fact is they've been hit hard because their officer numbers have been cut, and then they've got these young, wet behind the ears prison officers that might have been working at McDonald's or working in a warehouse. They've got no life experience, they don't know their head from their arse, and you're putting them on wings with very, very highly manipulative, highly violent and aggressive, volatile prisoners, some with mental health issues, some lashing out because they're annoyed at the system, anger, frustration, do you know what I mean? It goes on, right? And the fact is, I wouldn't be a prison officer for all the tea in China, because why? Because you get no support from the top. The training is not adequate for when you put them on the landings. But the thing is, the prison officers, they lobby for the smoking ban. Like I said, by doing that, you're antagonising prisoners. Violence has increased. By making it contraband, you've seen violence increase, because where you've got contraband, you've got debt. Where you've got debt, you've got fear, intimidation, bullying and violence. The Prison Officers Association then walked out last year saying we're not returning to work until we get X, Y and Z. They got a pay rise. They got Parva spray piloted in 4 prisons, and even though they lied and said it would reduce violence, it had not, and violence continued to increase. That's been rolled out in all public prisons in England and Wales. Yeah, and like I say, so be careful what you wish for to the prison officers, do you know what I'm saying? Right? You try to antagonise prisoners and stuff, and then they kick off, and then you say, look, the violent ex-offenders, violent offenders, criminals, violent, we're not putting up with this. So they've used that increase in violence, guys, what they've asked for, to arm themselves. And they want tasers, guys. Now, the Nationals, or the NTRGs, the National Tactical Response Groups, right? They've been given taser. They're not authorised to use it. They're trained. They've got them, but they're not authorised to use them. So why have they got them? You know what I mean? Crazy, guys. Crazy. You know what? I'm sweating like a pig. So yeah, so to the Prison Officers Association, I say this: be careful what you wish for, because there's some very good officers in jail. I need to make that point. There's some very, very good officers, really, really good. I've got nothing positive to say about Her Majesty's Prison. For those that don't know, prisons in the UK, you've got private and you've got public sector. Public sector prison officers are HMP, Her Majesty's Prison Service screws, swap the personality for a set of keys and some epaulets, right? That's the way it is for the most part. I met one or two alright ones, Mr. Legg and Miss Coombs in Strange Ways. Forest Bank, private prison run by Sodexo Justice Services. Completely different, like the screws were night and day, like really nice, approachable people, very easy to get on with. And I had a problem with a handful of prison officers. Apart from that, the rest of them were spot on. But like I say, I don't condone attacks on officers. But what makes me laugh is these prison officers. What do you think you're signing up for? You've got some of the most vulnerable, susceptible people in society, some with mental health issues. We've had the shit childhoods. We've been grown up in care, sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, bullied, addictions, mental health issues, Asperger's, autism, everything else, right? What do you think is going to happen in prison? They're being oppressed, prisoners, massively. And it's becoming a regressive regime and stuff. And the regimes are so harsh. And conditions and treatment of prisoners, it winds prisoners up. And then you want to take smoking from prisoners. And then they wonder why there's an increase in violence. And then they want to cry wolf when they're getting smashed all over the landings. Be careful what you wish for. On that note, guys, let me know what you think. I'm sweating like a pig. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.